My daughter grew up after school watching Oprah, Staying with Grandma. And so did my son. They can both tell you that. She was a die-hard Browns fan. And she encouraged all of her children to sing. My mom was a member of the a cappella choir at Sandusky High School. You had to try out to get in the a cappella choir. She must have been darn good. She was a part of the bell choir there, and I know they say that high school are your glory days. Well, the singing in the choir was definitely my mom's glory days, and she encouraged us all to sing. When my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer, she took that diagnosis with a grace that I didn't know that she possessed, and she took it a lot better than I did. I was angry, I was hurt, I was mad at God. I didn't know why my mom should have to suffer. But my mom, she said, this is my lot. This is what I need to do. She elected to go through at least 2 rounds of chemo and radiation so she could spend time with her family. She decided to prolong things and draw things out, which I didn't understand, but I do now. She wanted to spend as much time with her kids and her grandkids as she possibly could. And it didn't matter if she had no hair, and it didn't matter if she felt queasy, and it didn't matter if she needed pints and pints of someone else's blood in order to enjoy her day. That was okay. My mom came home from a blood transfusion with pink cheeks and a big smile and said she was experiencing someone else's serenity. And that was okay with her. She was grateful to all of the people who donated blood to the Red Cross so that she could experience someone else's serenity. We had sad moments and happy moments. My mom's favorite turban when she lost her hair was her Cleveland Browns turban, which she wore on all game days because she was superstitious, just like lots of Browns fans. I bet nobody else wore a Browns turban on game days, but you know, that was Mom. My mom had a pretty good year before she was out of remission and re-diagnosed, and cancer came back with a vengeance. And she had a really bad 5 days. Her last 5 days were spent in the hospital where she did not want to go, but she had to go because we couldn't control her pain unless she was there. We spent some time together, my mom and I, because it was a really difficult time and other family members couldn't stay with her because they couldn't stand to see her that way, but I'm the family nurse. So in addition to sewing stitches into people and doing the rest of the things that the family nurse ends up doing, I spent some real quality time with my mom. The day before my mom died, who knows how I was inspired or how I was even able to get through what I did, but we sang. I sang songs to my mom. I sang her songs that we sang together when I was a little girl. I sang her favorite songs from high school choir concerts. I sang her songs that she loved and that she grew up with and that she taught me. And I could hear the nurses and the housekeepers in the hall crying, but I didn't cry. I sang and sang for her. And she couldn't talk anymore, but she just smiled and smiled and smiled. My mom wanted us all to sing. And when my mom passed away, that wasn't the end for her. We had a memorial service against her wishes. We had a memorial service for us because we needed to celebrate her. But about 1.5 years later, my daughter, who was 17, a lead singer in her high school choir, and about to be a graduating senior, like Russ, she went into respiratory arrest and went into the hospital. She has bad asthma, bad reactive airway disease. She went into the hospital and within hours was on a ventilator at Bellevue Hospital, little small town hospital. And she had a traumatic intubation What that means is that they put a tube down her throat so that the machine could breathe for her, but they nicked her trachea as they did that, and her chest cavity started to fill with air that's not supposed to be there. She was transported to Toledo Medical College, where she was on the ventilator in intensive care for 10 days. They told me to go home. There was nothing I could do for her. They were taking great care of her. Well, they were taking great care of her, but I was not going home. This is my child. I wasn't going to be an hour and a half away if something went wrong, so I slept on the floor of the waiting room for 10 days. I know too much. I'm a nurse. I watched her bronchoscopy on TV, and she was breathing out of a portion of her lung the size of a baseball. All of the rest was shut down. And I feared that I would lose my daughter right after I lost my mother. I can't say that I lost faith, but I did fear for losing my daughter. Fortunately, 10 days later, she came out of her reactive airway disease and started to recover and started to breathe on her own, praise God, and she is with us here today. But I'll tell you why. When my daughter came out of her anesthesia, because they keep you sedated when you're on the ventilator, she had wild eyes and she looked really frightened, and I told her over and over, she could not speak because when you have a tube in your throat, it kind of freezes your vocal cords. I told her over and over what had happened, what day it was, that she hadn't missed the high school musical. They were putting on Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat that year, and she had a lead part. She hadn't missed the musical. And as I was telling her these things, she was trying to tell me something, and I didn't understand. Once I did understand what she was saying, and she could whisper, she said, "Do you hear it?" I'm like, do I hear what? So I started telling her all of the things that I heard. I hear the EKG. It's going beep, beep, beep every time your heart beats. I hear that. I hear the whiz of the oxygen behind us. I hear the call lights going off in the hallway. Other people need something. None of those things were the things that my daughter heard. She got very frustrated with me, but that's nothing new. When she finally could tell me, she said, "I hear singing. Don't you hear it? Don't you hear the singing?" And I said, "No, I don't. But tell me about it. Is it a man singing?" No, it's not a man singing. Is it a group of people? She heard a woman singing. My daughter, who just woke up from almost going to see God, heard singing. And she heard a woman singing, and it wasn't me, and I had been singing to her. It wasn't me that she heard. It was her grandmother. My daughter woke up from almost going to see God, hearing her grandmother singing to her, and it's the only thing that she remembers of those horrible 10 days. I remember every detail. She remembers her grandmother singing, and I am so grateful. She could write finally, and wrote on her little piece of paper in red pen and showed it to me, "Am I crazy?" And I said, "No, honey, you are not crazy. Your grandmother has sang you right back to life and right back to us, and I'll never forget that as long as I live." Now, I don't know if you believe in that sort of thing, and I don't know if I did either before that day, but I do now. And I know that my mom is watching over us and is so proud of all of us and would love to be here in person if she could, but she's here. She's here.